rather than anything else. So it's still interpretation,
What
but
context?
the language context. So how the Jews would have read it, how the Greeks would have read it. Yeah. So it tries its best to do that.
That's cool.
So it does a good job.
What does the ESV do?
Good question, I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't remember. It might ironically be more like the NIV. Yeah.
I think it's wise to listen to theology
Sunday
students.
school.
And to just try as many translations as you can until you find the one that fits you. Keep-
We're live.
Cool. So we're doing something different. Let's try this differently. Like I said, we're probably moving to Sunday mornings. The main reason is because of timing, is what I'm being told. And the reason that we had done Fridays originally was also because of timing. So when I had interviewed everybody and talked to everybody, I was asking as people when I was in Louisiana, what time, what day works best? They're like, oh, Friday night would be great. I was like, okay. We did Friday and it didn't work. So let's try Sunday morning. Let's see what happens. And we'll go from there. But yeah, let's try to do this a little differently. I don't know if we can incorporate this, but let's try it. So for today, let's just go right into the communion, and we'll do communion together. And what we can do, we can just do kind of the way it was, take it and pass it, and we can just do it that way. Hopefully that works out. So, and we can start right now. But the communion, of course, was something done as a practice to remember what Jesus said on that night. He told us that, he took bread, he broke it, he shared it, and he said, "This is my body broken for you." And this was a symbol that we can also remember the sacrifice that was made of him sacrificing his body. And the beauty of this is that we can do it anywhere at any time, and I think this is quid pro quo of like what the mentality is, that we just be able to participate in that mentality. And of course, taking the cup, saying, yeah.
I'm having a hard time.
Sorry. Bread is,
Very hard time last week.
I feel like the bread's getting harder and harder. Is it the day old bread?
No, it's
No.
Vons has
fresh.
the good.
Yeah, I went to Vons.
But you have to get the soft stuff.
I don't know how we're doing this, but.
Body.
We tried.
It's okay.
Blood, yes.
It's the
And so
thought that counts.
he took the cup, absolutely. He took the cup. Oh, yes. He took the cup and he did the same, shared it with the disciples and said, "This is my blood that's been shed for you." And so we do this now, and we can continue doing that as a way for us to remember who Christ is, what he's done, and ultimately that our lives are in his hands because of grace, not because of anything we've done. And doing it together connects us in a different way. So hopefully you take advantage of that. I've always wanted to be part of a congregation that did communion weekly. I've grown up in Packin where we didn't do a week. It was like once a quarter maybe. And there's too much value in slowing down, doing this, remembering, and processing the importance of Jesus' sacrifice. So, that leads us into our discussion. Sermon. Let me just say sermon. That's the way it is. And we'll go through it. So we're going through John 6:1-3. Now the interesting thing with John and the argument I'm trying to make is that this chapter is the most important chapter in the book of John. It's the longest chapter. Hold on a sec. 19. 19 is pretty long. I think it's the longest chapter. It's a very long chapter. And so there's a lot of value that gets put in it, especially for the types of aspects that Jesus is providing. We just got a sense of what he's talking about in chapter 5 of him being God. But even up until that, emphasizing this idea of belief. Only by believing you can be redeemed. That's it. No action necessary. And we talked about that a little bit a few weeks ago, just the type of action needed when you believe. But there's nothing you need to do to earn salvation. It is a gift that is given. That's the beauty of the aspect of grace. But we have to remember, I should remember this. There are notes on line if you wanted to follow along there. But we have to remember, yes, there's no action necessary introduction, that beginning part. But there is a change in your life that follows. You will live differently. You will act differently. You will say different things because you've been impacted by the salvation being free. Now, many Christians will flip that, right? And when that happens, that's when judgmental mentality gets implemented, where Christians are now coming off of judgmental, and it's very accurate. It's 100% true. We are being judgmental because we've broken the order of how Christianity is supposed to work. Belief introduces Christianity. Works don't earn that salvation. They prove that salvation. So the works follow once we recognize what that grace has done for us. But here's the thing on top of that. We're not supposed to prove that salvation to each other. It doesn't exist. Now, we have to remember back in the day, and we're talking about Jesus' time, post-Jesus' time. Disciples are new, they're expanding, they're going out. There was a sense of proof for each other, and it was just based on safety. Christian churches were hidden. They were not in the public because they were persecuted. So there was an aspect of proving Christianity to each other. How did they do that? They did it with baptism. The baptism was the key. Becoming baptized was your public proclamation that I'm a Christian. And there's a reason for it. They needed to do that because they needed to trust people, because otherwise they can lead soldiers and whatever could happen, like dangerous things could happen if you found out you were Christians. So there was an aspect of proving Christianity to each other, and you can see it here and there implemented into Paul's writing in the New Testament. But the very essence of Christianity, none of it is required for us to prove our salvation to one another. We prove it to God. And the beauty of that, of course, God's proof is that, are you believing or not? That's all he needs. But there's action that does follow from that. And I compared to this, I got my degree, of course, PhD in psychology. And so I have the highest degree I could possibly get. There's nothing else above that. Now, when I sit with a client in the room, a patient, whatever you want to call, I can come up with all my theories. I can come up with lots of ideas. I can come up with different kinds of studies and research and bring my own experience into it of what could possibly be an answer for this person sitting in front of me that's suffering in some capacity. And when I have that answer, I present it. I offer it to that person. And they can be like, nope, that's not me. That does not fit. And that's okay. That's how it's supposed to work. That's what I want us to take into Christianity as well. Each person's unique. Each person experiences the journey differently. And everything is functioning as we believe in God. And that's how it starts to form into how we're understanding what we're supposed to do. Even twins, unique qualities, right? There's still unique qualities. Yes, the genetic code may be identical, but there's still uniqueness for each individual as they experience who God is in that relationship that's supposed to look like, and go on that journey, ultimately, to becoming more mature of a Christian. So we shouldn't assume we know somebody without actually knowing them first, right? The judgment part. We'll talk about judgment more. John chapter 8, if you want to jump ahead. Lots of judgment. We'll talk about lots of judgment. Don't worry. I have a long discussion about that. I take that. I take the judgment piece and I combine it also with how to receive criticism, because I feel like that's something missing as well. But that's for then. Now we're talking about just this level of, at the beginning of a journey, what does it look like to be a Christian? So that's what we're talking about in John chapter 6. And more specifically, Jesus is going to explain what a Christian's supposed to look like once they actually believe. That's what we're going to answer. We're going to take 3 sermons to do that. So bear with me. We're going to build up. Today, what I thought was we'll just do an introduction. We'll just kind of set the stage, and we'll get into what it's supposed to look like eventually. My next sermon will build on that more. Then the last sermon in 2 weeks will finalize that idea, what we're getting. Cool? Okay, mentality? Great. So we got that set. So let's catch back up to where we are. Because it's going to build on that. Just so we have a reminder, John chapter 1 talks about how we believe that Jesus is God, right? He's connecting Greek philosophy, Hebrew tradition, he's making all this cool stuff. And then he talks about Philip finding Nathanael and says, hey, we found Jesus. This guy is a big deal. Great. John chapter 2, we get one of Jesus' signs, right? He turns water into wine. So the signs start to happen. There's also another sign that is not miraculous, but he flips over tables. That's another sign that's a different kind of sign. John chapter 3 and 4, we get 2 of the most important conversations between 2 very important people. Hello and welcome.
Hey.
Doing things a little differently today. We get 2 most important. We get this wide variety of explanation. On one end, you have a Pharisaic male, leader within his church, hiding in the darkness of night, approaching Jesus and asking questions. On the other end, you have a Samaritan woman, an outcast of society, as being a Samaritan, being a woman, coming in the middle of the day, the brightest time, to be able to meet with Jesus at a public location. And of course, of all these things that happened, the Pharisee couldn't quite wrap his head around what Jesus was saying about belief, But the Samaritan woman not only did, but then went and became a witness for Jesus and was able to provide a bigger sense of what's going on. Okay, we get to John chapter 4. It ends with one more sign, right? Jesus heals a boy from long range, right? So he has a disability as well. And it's just because the Father believes. That was the coolest thing. You like believe? Good. Healed. And then John chapter 5, now close range, more proximity. He heals a man that's sitting at the pool of Bethsaida, which normally they would get into the pool and heal that way. It wasn't happening, but he was healed. Somebody that had been paralyzed for years. So all these things Jesus is doing, we have to imagine, and I love the way Chosen presents this. Mm-hmm. Jesus is gaining popularity. Mm-hmm. Like imagine that happening, the controversy, and at the same time the excitement about you're hearing this happen. There's no social media, there's no news, there's nothing like that. It's word of mouth. Did you guys see there's this paralyzed man, and paralyzed, I mean, the legs, we've seen muscle dystrophy, is that the word? Where it just atrophy. Where there's just, like, the guy probably looks completely different pre-heel and post-heel when he's starting to walk around. Like, it's probably mind-blowing what Jesus is doing. And in public locations and in big places. So obviously he's gaining popularity. He's becoming more and more important. And rightfully so, religious leaders are becoming uncomfortable. This guy is saying, my Father, when he's talking about God. What in the world? I don't know if some of us ever are uncomfortable by saying that term when we pray, but it's a big deal to say that. So we have to be very cautious about what's going on here with Jesus, but a big deal was going on. So, author sets us up with a very interesting dilemma, and as we get to this location right here. He creates Jesus to be a counter to the religious problems that people were experiencing. Jesus is the good guy. He is not the anti-hero. He's not the antagonist. He's the good guy in this situation. And you want to listen to him. You want to follow him. You want to do whatever he tells you to do. So Jesus is the guy you're rooting for. And then you reach chapter 6. And chapter 6 sets us up for, I don't know if it's like the biggest swerve, curveball. I couldn't think of the right thing to call it. But anyways, it sets us up for something that is going to be a big deal for the way that Jesus is being presented.
Plot
So,
twist.
huh?
Plot twist.
Plot twist, yeah, plot twist works. So, the chapter itself, of course, is the story of the feeding of the 5,000, which, Noel, thank you for the songs. It was right on for the feeding of the 5,000, which I would say now, maybe let's do the songs again next week, because that fits perfectly for next week. But this week is like more of an introduction to it, but if you have any ideas, that's fine, go with it. So these 3 verses will be enough, and we'll land on these, we'll finish up with this, and then we'll call it a day call it a night. Okay, so verse 1 through 3, let me read those to you real quick.
John 6.
John 6, 1 through 3. And then the other thing also, all here, we can interrupt. Feel free to interrupt. If there's a question, there's a comment, let me know, and we can stop and we can talk about it too. So any thoughts, any questions so far? All good so far? Great, okay. John 6, 1 through 3. So after this, Jesus went to the other side of the Sea of Galilee, also called the Sea of Tiberias. A large crowd kept following him because they saw the signs that he was doing for the sick. Jesus went up the mountain, sat down there with his disciples. So, I've mentioned this multiple times, and I've talked to people. People have asked me how I do sermons, how much I plan, what I do. And I always say, you need to schedule about an hour for every minute, an hour of study for every minute of sermon. That's what I say, so it should be about 20 to 30 minutes, 30 hours for a 20 to 30 minute sermon. And then the other piece I add to it when they ask me, they say, how many verses should I be preaching? And I was like, 3. This is the ideal sermon right here. This is how long. Already, this is too long. I'm trying to cut it short by talking faster. I can talk about, like, a proper study could land on verses and just expound. And there's so much in the Bible when the simple. This is like when you read these verses, you're going to be like, there's not much going on here, but we slow things down and you'll notice there. So let's go 1 verse at a time. Verse 1. After this, Jesus went to the other side of the Sea of Galilee, also called the Sea of Tiberias. Okay. After what?
After the previous thing.
After the previous thing. What was going on in the previous thing? Well, it was Passover. It was a festival in Jerusalem. Okay, so just piece that together right now. Because we just had Jesus, a huge argument with religious leaders in the middle of a festival, huge festival, when there's hundreds of thousands of people that come to Jerusalem. And there's also a lot of these religious acts that are going on. So everybody's mind is around this functionality of what the religion is supposed to be. And Jesus comes out and says he is God. Okay, it's a big deal, right? The other piece, it's happening in Jerusalem. Where's the Sea of Galilee? Visualize the map. You have Jerusalem at the south end. You have Sea of Tiberias up there in the north. Let's set a perspective of travel. It takes about 5 days of travel to go from Jerusalem to the Sea of Galilee, to that area. And we're talking about 25 kilometers per day that you're walking, so about 15 miles. So decent speed, you're walking about 2 miles per hour. It takes about 8 hours per day. You've got a lot of walking. And it says, what? Verse 2, a large crowd kept following him. Again, we don't have social media for like the messages to be spread that, oh, he's getting up to Samaria. The more people are going to start coming. Oh, he passed it. We're at this next town. More people are going to be coming. Oh, he's there. He's there, Sea of Galilee. Now everyone's at Sea of Galilee. They're literally following him for tens of kilometers every day. And it says a large group of people. We get a number later on. What's that number that we get later on? 5,000. That's a lot of people that are walking across the country following this guy to just see what he's going to do next. Chosen did not do a good job with that one. He kind of just shows up and they mix it with the Beatitudes. I don't really like that one. I don't agree with that interpretation. They kind of skip John because John does things uniquely. It's a very different way than the way the Synoptic Gospels do. But it's a weird scene to think about it. It is very upsetting, especially if you're a religious leader. So what's going on here is massive. This large crowd is following Jesus up there. And just imagine the effect that Jesus had on these people. They've seen the miracles. They've seen, what else is this guy going to do? And of course, he's combining it with talking. He's teaching. He's doing. What else is he going to say? What are these people called? What does it say in the book of John? Disciples. These are the disciples. And so we're getting a taste of the popularity Jesus had and the following that he created because of the signs we read about. This large crowd, we need to remember, it's not just random people. It's Jesus' disciples. They're following him because they want to learn from him. They want to see what else he's going to do. By the end of the chapter, the author of John will make a distinction between a disciple and the 12. So that will happen. Up until then, thousands of people are disciples of Jesus following him where he's going. So it's a very important thing to keep in mind right now of what's going on here. There's an exception I'll mention later, but disciple itself is the generic term that's being used. So it means you're following someone. You're going after them. You're trying to figure out, okay, what's this guy doing? And it's almost identical to now, what we experience now, what maybe all of us do on our phones, right? We watch a video on YouTube or any social media platform, and then what do? Follow, right? We become their disciples. We become the disciples of these influencers, and we're listening to them, right? It feels weird thinking of that way. You're not their apostles, don't worry. But what's happening is we're being formed by them, right? They're influencing our identity because we're starting to think differently based on what that person's teaching, right? We're relying on their insight. We're relying on their input. They put out a 30-second video and you're ready to watch it every single time it comes on. And if you use today's term, Jesus was basically the first influencer. He went viral like crazy, right? If you think about what was going on at this time, Jesus was influencing everybody around him. So what do influencers do, right? They make appropriate videos. They have the content ready. They have the appropriate length. They say the right stuff. You got to get the thing so that you can get the algorithm going on your side, right? But the most common videos you're going to see are people that are just talking about a particular subject, right? I do this for myself. There's games I play. I watch people for advice on games. That's one of my go-tos of what I do. And I don't have as much time as I would like to be able to invest into the game. So I trust this guy who's going to tell me what to do, and I listen to him. Now, one day he gets on his video and is like, oh, this is what I do for my diet. This is how I eat my food. I don't care what this guy has to do with his diet. That's not why I watch this guy. I could care less what this guy has to do with anything else. I ignore everything else. And if it's like in the video and I know he's going to talk about something else, I'll skip it. I completely don't care. Why would I ever need to? He's not proven to me. He's proven to me in other ways. Jesus is about to do that here. People are following him. Why? Because they have seen his signs. signs. We're going to see that frequently, and we're going to see that especially next week. But he's about to tell them what those signs mean, and that's what's going to be huge. Considering the gravity of God himself showing up, Jesus, being that influencer, feeding at least 5,000 people, right, of just out of nowhere food. And now, plot twist, is going to show up, and this group of followers that have been, I'm sure we've had that too, we've had that influencer, they do something weird, and we're like, I don't know, unfollow. I'm not going to watch this person's videos anymore. Something's bizarre about this, not a fan, right? Once you see the signs, you start to believe in Jesus. So he's about to tell these disciples what it actually means to believe in Jesus. And an interesting point about this verse, however, are the words that are being used. The word for following is the same word we've been describing for disciple. It's a very similar verb that's being used. Disciple is a noun, following is a verb, or adverb, I guess. The author of John views all these people as Jesus' disciples. We got that clear. They are intently rotating their lives around Jesus. They just walked 120 kilometers with this guy because they want to see what he's going to do next, right? Up to. I'm sure as he's going, the crowd was big, and then as he's going to another town, there's no way Jesus did nothing, but he did something there, and now more people got in there, and more people. So you got a lot of walking and joining that's been going on, and it won't be until the end of the chapter that the author's going to make that distinction between the disciples and the 12, and Jesus makes that, and that's how we get that. But until then, even the 12 are part of Jesus' disciples. However, the most interesting word that we get is the Greek word for crowd. The word for crowd means a people who are confused. And so the idea here, this large group of people that are following, disciples of course are following, but it is also people that don't fully understand why. What am I doing here? I'm going along, but I'm not getting a full understanding of what's going on. So, speaks volumes for disciples even now, right? Many people want to follow Jesus, but are doing it without actually knowing what that means. What is entailing of being a follower of Christ?
Well, they probably see, they don't probably see Jesus.
Of course, yeah.
They see the bunch of people walking one way, and they're like, oh, let's join.
What the heck is going on there? I mean, if you think about thousands, have you ever been to a place with thousands of people?
Yes.
Like,
Stadium or concert.
yeah, and if you don't have a vantage point to be able to see what's going, no idea. Like if you're all flat around,
You're probably asking like,
hey, what's going on up there? It's like, shh, shut up. I was like, I don't know. Like now I have no idea what's going on, or you need to watch it on video, or like if you go to a concert, you have cameras everywhere and TVs that are showing. Like if you're part of that, you're like you have no idea. Right, 100%. So with that, there are two types of Christians I want us to keep in mind.
Okay.
And again, I want us to keep this in mind as we go out, because all of this is going to start to connect more and more as we begin to place ourselves in these groups and then also place ourselves within the narrative that we're providing. So first are the Christians that follow Jesus, but their lives haven't changed at all. Okay, so these are people that verbally, I'm a follower of Jesus. Great, that's awesome. Do it. Awesome. Have fun. But there's a limitation. There's a wall, whether it's a wall intentionally or ignorantly, that the person's life is not transforming. It makes no sense. It can't. Knowing Jesus will transform your life. It will absolutely do it. You will act differently than when you didn't follow Jesus. And that's a good indicator as to whether you are actually knowing Jesus or not. It's going to make sense. Are you actually part of the inner circle, or are you on that confused outside, not being able to understand exactly what's going on? And you can tell from that. Has your life changed? My favorite example that I always think about for this one, I work with mostly kids, and one of the most common disorders I work with is ADHD. And so almost every single time, this is anecdotal, this is just my experience, this is not something I've read in research. Almost every time I'll know if a medication is working for a kid. If you ask the kid, and they say, it doesn't do anything, I feel nothing. And then you ask the teacher, and they're like, night and day difference. This kid is sitting still, paying it. You know for a fact that medication is doing what it's supposed to be doing. Because consistently, the kid's not able to notice that something's actually different, but everyone around that kid is like, well, there's a big difference between what's going on. You ask the parents, you ask the kid. So that's almost every time. The irony, when a kid says, it feels weird when I take it, you listen to them and take them to the psychiatrist, because it means they're probably getting the side effects that they shouldn't, the rare side effects that you want to change the medication. So it's really interesting. It's worked for me so far. Every kid I've interacted with, and telling the parents is very helpful. But Christianity is very similar. Your life is going to feel visibly and notably different by knowing and believing in Jesus. Maybe it's going to be from the outside, but what you're going to do when you know Jesus, you're going to try to care for people different, the way he did, right? You're going to try to love people the way he did. All these things you're going to change. Forgive, the mercy, the justice. You're going to do all those things because that's what you care about. And that's because Jesus cares about it in the first place. So are you really following him? And that's going to be an important indicator. So it's not very clear what happens to these Christians. We don't make assumptions. We don't judge them. That's the whole point of this, hopefully. Sometimes they learn their mistakes and may be introduced to Jesus improperly. Right? From the beginning, they just did not know what it's supposed to be like. So they had an incorrect way. Or maybe they were introduced, but then they weren't fully in. They may have fizzled out. They were fully in. They got burnt out. They were going to Bible study 4 times a week. It's like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. It's great, but I'm done.
Way to call me out.
Not you specifically. I didn't say it. You turn it if you want to. Now, on the opposite end, the second type of Christians, these are people that believe and are intent on proving this belief to everyone around them. And so this is a different kind of problem. And it's as ridiculous as the first problem. They pretend to care for people the way Jesus did. They pretend to love people the way Jesus did. They pretend to have forgiveness, mercy, justice, all those things. I worked at Apple. I mentioned this multiple times. I think I mentioned this story multiple times too. But we have something called, we use the customer satisfaction as the most important piece of our survey. And we use a very difficult customer satisfaction. I'm not going to go into it, but the way the rating system is, it is setting you up for failure. And you really got to blow it out of the park. And I had one of the highest in the company. So it was really good. And I did a lot good. And there was another guy that was also, I think we were both top 25 in the company, in the nation, in the world. And we were both at the same store together. So our boss asked us, hey, can you guys share what do you guys do for customer satisfaction? So I went up and I was like, well, I do my best. Like I try to side with them, empathy, the whole thing that Apple teaches. Like you got to empathize with them, put yourself in their shoes. What are they going through? Try to make sure they can walk out the door a winner. Like I want them to promote this company. So that's what I explain all that and the stuff I do. And I legit do. I care. And if you ever were with me when I was at Apple, I was getting so impressed with the stuff Apple did, I would take from it and bring it to church. We're like, dude, they do church better than we do, so we should start doing stuff. So I was very intent on making that happen. It was part of my character. Then the second guy goes up, and he's an actor. And he goes up and he says, well, you got to treat the outside as your stage. You got to pretend like you care for people. So the contrast was really interesting. Fake, yeah, but it's providing, but there's only so far you can go with that. There's only a limit to how much you can do, fake until you make it, yeah. Eventually that's the point. You get exhausted.
Well, he's an actor.
But
He's an actor, so he probably...
He's an actor, so he does it all the time.
He doesn't get tired.
But you still get drained. When you have to, and he would talk about this too, he would get so exhausted he would have to get off the stage, right? He has to go to the back so that he can just get away from people. And there's nothing to hide. There's nowhere to hide. I don't think you've ever been to Apple's back of house. It's like, it's so busy. There's so much going on, so he would just leave altogether. He would go up to the parking lot, get in his car, his brakes were there. Like, he would be exhausted. So there's a mentality here that as Christians, we can't do the same thing over and over again, pretending, because it's exhausting, and we're not going to make it. We're not going to survive. So what do? You're somewhere in the middle as a person. Whatever your circumstances are, wherever you put yourself, maybe you're confident enough you can put yourself in one of these two groups of people. There's a third group of people, right? Christians that are trying. They're doing their best. They're changing their lives. They're implementing everything they learn, right? So how do we handle these people, both these groups of people? Well, you need to be where they're at. Humor them. Go along with them. Because what's going to eventually happen is that out comes the truth. On its own. You don't have to do anything about it. Because it's not your job, first of all. Remember, we're not supposed to prove salvation to each other. It's something between you and God. So you can just continue to be the person you're supposed to be. I'm a Christian brother or sister to this person. And whatever they need, I'm going to do it. If they're trying to go through this and that and whatever's going on. And I have to stop going to church now because I can't stand the people. I was like, okay, no problem. Knock yourself out. I'll be here for you whenever you need it. I refuse to pray. I'm never going to pray again. I was like, okay, cool, that's fine. As long as you think that that's what you need. Whatever the circumstances are for this person, that there might be something missing between the journey and their lifestyle. That's where we can start to be that person that is a little bit more stable. That I will stay with you and be where you're at. Because the biggest problem is many of us think that we need to be good Christians to each other. And that's just not the case. That is not the priority. That's not the most important thing. When you follow Jesus, you will want to live a life that's different. It will come out naturally. So there's no need to pretend. There's no need to prioritize the relationship in any different way, because all you do is live out what matches the Bible, what the Bible says. So the question that we come back to, who are you following? Or what? Maybe you don't want to follow Jesus. That's totally fine. But who or what are you following? These people were following Christ, but they were a crowd. They had no idea why they were following Christ or what it meant to even follow Christ. And we'll get into that a little bit more with the next one. But we see it in that end of that verse 2. They saw the signs that he was doing for the sick. This guy had something. We have to follow him. There's something going on, but they didn't want their lives to change. I want to see what happens, but I don't want to be too involved. I just want to get more signs, and I'm satisfied with the signs, but that's about it. And ironically, next week we're going to talk about the distinction in 2 weeks, sorry. We'll talk about the distinction of being a person who wants the signs and being a person who was fed. And that distinction will be made too. But they didn't care about what Jesus would actually live and die for. They want to follow Jesus because there were signs. We need to follow Jesus because we want to love sinners. We want to follow Jesus because we want to learn how to better forgive each other, how to have mercy, how to live in that grace that's been taught to us. These are the things that are going to benefit us if we are able to focus on what it actually means to follow Jesus. So, stop pretending if you are one of those people, right? And the joking way I say this, I know it's not much of a joke, but the way I describe this, stop pretending to be a Christian because you're making the job harder for non-Christians to understand what it means to follow Jesus. Because of the way certain people live hypocritically, it just makes it that much more difficult now for the people that are trying their best. Because it's usually the loudest people are the ones that are most wrong. So we have to come up with excuses, we have to come up with reasons, like why is this person not able to forgive each other? Why does this person have a illogical sense of how mercy works? How could they be Christian? And the answer is, I don't know. I have no idea what's going on with this person at all. And I wish I could give a better answer, but there's not much clarity of it. So don't live in confusion, whether for yourself or for other people. Stop following Jesus because you're looking for more signs. And the final verse gives us insight as to the type of person Jesus was. The Gospels talk about this several times, right? Constantly Jesus is trying to, what? Separate himself from the crowds. And here he finally does, right? And he does it with his, it looks like it's with his 12, but I still think it's disciples. This is where the distinction between crowd and disciples becomes important. But it says Jesus goes up the mountain. Knowing the rest of the story, we can try to answer why Jesus went up the mountain. Maybe he knew he was about to feed 5,000 people plus, and he needed a better place for them. I don't know. But I don't think that's the reason, because this consistently happens. When Jesus sees a large crowd, he separates himself. He distances himself. And he practices a very important spiritual discipline that I've mentioned multiple times, solitude. Solitude is very important. It's something I've introduced to lots of teenagers in therapy, and they're like, what? That makes no sense. It's valuable on many other levels than just the Bible told me so. But it's not only that it's difficult just to do because of age and just things that are going, but just as a marriage, like in this country, like we have cell phones that instantly connect us to the world around us. There's a, no, I won't say that. Okay, so anyways, it's difficult to find solitude. And that's the most important piece, right? And so we need to realize that that's the problem in and of itself. You can't find solitude. It's very similar to Sabbath, the way I describe Sabbath. You can't just suddenly, oh, here's time. The way it's supposed to work, you don't make room for it. You decide, here is my solitude time, or here is my Sabbath time, and now I'm going to push everything out of the way to make sure this time stays holy, set aside, put together, so that I can make sure that you build your entire schedule around solitude, around Sabbath, whatever the circumstance that you want to be able to do. You can't just make room for it. It requires intention, it requires purpose. Jesus constantly was distancing himself, looking for alone time. And the beautiful thing about it was, there really isn't a format necessarily. You don't have to do something specific. Just be quiet, separate yourself. Silence and solitude go very well with each other, but you can do other things as well. But it's extremely relevant why Jesus was practicing solitude, because he's about to deliver one of the harshest sermons he was ever going to deliver in chapter 6. So the author of John setting this all up, and he's getting us ready. And for today, we want to just set the stage for that. This idea of what's about to happen, and let that question just ring in our heads too, as something what I can leave with. Who or what am I following? What is it that I am leaving my hometown and following hundreds of kilometers to see what happens next? And at the same time, have you tried to implement solitude? Solitude is an important piece that we get and we learn about, but more importantly, restructuring your life around it, similarly to who you follow. And so that's going to be the key that we get the difference between the two. Any thoughts, any questions?
I wrote like 8 pages.
Okay, good.
I may have gotten caught up with the words, but can you say that one more time? How is it practicing solitude when it says he sat down with his disciples, and you said disciples were thousands of people?
Yes, so the idea is that he is separating himself so that he can be able to talk with them. I want to speak to you guys. This is what the conversation is going to be. So there's going to be multiple times where he separates himself from everybody, or he separates himself from a specific group of people. He goes off by himself, but pulls individuals from the 12. Yeah, so it's all going to be different ways, but this one, that going up the mountain mentality has consistently been tied to separating himself from the common group of people. So the distinction there being that it's not the crowd he's joining with, it's his disciples that he's joining with. And yes, it's thousands of people probably, but the idea, it could be because there's no distinction between the 12 and the disciples just yet. So, but at the end of the day, I like to believe that Jesus really wanted all those people that were following him to be actual disciples that wanted to follow him. So he was ready to teach them and get them ready, kind of prepare them. And in my
Not
mind,
just the curious ones who
Yeah.
were like, "What's happening?"
Like if you
Yes.
want this, come up the mountain.
yes,
Got
yeah.
it. Okay.
And in
Well,
my
it's
mind,
Like
he's isolating
Like
himself from that. Yeah,
Mm.
exactly. Now, are there going to be other moments where there's a better description of solitude? 100%. Yeah. So this isn't the best one, but
Yeah.
it's still. I feel like with those word plays that we.
Intentional separation.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the key.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Cool.
If you have more questions, we can stick around. Let me pray you out of here. Heavenly Father, thank you for his time. Thank you for flexibility and trying to figure out new ways of doing things. Lord, I pray that everything that we do is not only pleasing to you, but a blessing to us. That we learn, that we expand, we grow, we challenge ourselves, and we ultimately do what we can so that you'll be pleased, but so that the world will be a better place, and we will be better people because of it. Now to him who is able to keep you from falling, and to make you stand without blemish in the presence of his glory with rejoicing, to the only God, our Savior, through Jesus Christ our Lord, be glory, majesty, power, and authority, before all time and now, and forever. Amen.
Amen.
Go in peace.
Thank you. Thank you.
Interesting.
I didn't see it. Oh yeah.
I like this.
Was it
Good.
good?
This is nice. It was like a good little.
I was here Wednesday. I didn't
I
see
also
it.
like
You
this.
didn't see it?
Good. Yeah.
Yeah, the upstairs is
It's huge.
Like it's not that like.